The presidents of Turkey and the United States have spoken on the phone and have agreed that the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi needs to be solved. Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on the 2nd of October. But Saudi Arabia has once again changed its version of what happened inside the building. Earlier, they said Khashoggi had died during a fist fight. Now they say 15 Saudi nationals threatened to drug and kidnap Khashoggi. He resisted and was killed with a chokehold. Meanwhile, TRT World has obtained exclusive CCTV pictures of Jamal Khashoggi just minutes before he entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. You can see in this picture Khashoggi arriving at the consulate at 1:13 p.m. on October 2nd. Seconds later, he makes his way through the barricade outside the building. Khashoggi then goes behind the barricades where he is seen speaking with his fiancée, Hatice Cengiz. This would be their last conversation. At 1:14 p.m., Khashoggi heads back toward the building where he is stopped and searched. Khashoggi makes his way to the entrance of the Saudi consulate. And here, Khashoggi is seen in what at this point is believed to be the final picture taken of him before his disappearance. Turkey's president has said he will make a statement about Khashoggi's killing this week. Ben Said has more.
In these new pictures filmed just before his death on October 2nd, Jamal Khashoggi is seen entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. He's smiling, friendly, happy, a man about to be married to his Turkish fiancée just a day later, with no sense of the horror awaiting him. And while the Saudis have admitted killing Jamal Khashoggi, they've revealed little else. There was on Sunday some more public comment from the Riyadh government. The foreign minister called the operation an aberration, but crucially insisted that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman didn't send the 15 men who did the killing, what some have called a hit squad.
Individuals who did this outside the scope of their authority. There obviously was a tremendous mistake made, and what compounded the mistake was the attempt to try to cover up. That is unacceptable in any government. These things unfortunately happen.
The foreign minister also claimed that the Saudis have no idea where Khashoggi's body lies. The Turks are trying hard to connect the dots to close the case. There's been a hint from President Erdogan that we may be near that moment.
I hope to make a statement on Tuesday on the Khashoggi killing during the weekly meeting of our Justice and Development Party. Why did these 15 people come to Istanbul? Why were 18 people arrested in Saudi Arabia? These questions need to be answered in detail.
The Saudis may be hoping that Turkish investigators can't find Khashoggi's body, and if they do, can't provide any forensic evidence to dispute their story. That he died after a struggle, that he wasn't tortured, and that his body was not cruelly and gruesomely dismembered. So, some more details may have emerged of the Saudi view of events, but make no mistake, their position has not changed. They're still sticking to the line that the 15 men who came to the consulate here behind me to meet Khashoggi were here for a friendly discussion to try and persuade him to come back to Saudi Arabia, and that this was a dreadful accident, certainly not premeditated murder. Ben Said, TRT World, Istanbul.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel says her country will not export arms to Saudi Arabia while questions about Khashoggi's killing go unanswered. Germany, France, and Britain have issued a joint statement demanding that Saudi Arabia urgently provide clarity over Khashoggi's death.
First, we condemn this act in the strongest terms, as we made clear yesterday. Second, there's an urgent need to clarify what happened. We are far from this having been cleared up and those responsible held to account. Thirdly, I agree with all those who say that arms exports, albeit already limited, can't take place in the current circumstances.
Hassan Abdullah has been following the story in Istanbul. He says Turkish investigators are focusing on finding a body.
The investigation continues, and the Turkish side has spoken to some of the local employees who had been working here at the consulate, as well as they've been very closely monitoring the CCTV footage, not just from around this area, but beyond. They've been working on the possible trail that was used by one of the vehicles to transport the body. Now, of course, a fundamental question at this point in time they're trying to address is where exactly is the body? Now, the Turkish side has adopted a strategy where they've resorted to selective leaks of information to the media, and we understand that that has been done to work out mobilization patterns of the Saudi side, and the Turkish side tells us that they have obtained a lot of information from that. Now, they are questioning the changing of Saudi versions so many times, and for example, one of the recent leaks that has come from the Saudi side, that the suspects handed over the body of the slain journalist to, as they called, a local collaborator. Now, one question the investigators are addressing, if that is indeed so, then this to them is a suggestion that there was some sort of a preparation beforehand, and not, as the Saudis are suggesting, that it just happened by mistake, because they're saying that it's not so easy to find a collaborator willing to accept a body and shift. And also another point they're addressing is that if there was already a local collaborator available, then does that mean that perhaps the Saudis have been prepared for these sort of scenarios? So these are some of the questions they are looking at, and the president has said that he is going to be making an announcement on Tuesday, and we understand some of the revelations are going to come. The Turkish side has been talking to their partners around the world. When we talk to Turkish officials, they say that the investigation is obviously continuing on technical merit independently. But on the political side, they do say that the sort of attitude they're getting from some of their partners, particularly some in Washington, who they say are more interested in protecting their business interests as opposed to trying to get justice for the slain journalist, this is a matter of concern. But the Turkish diplomats have been talking to their counterparts around the world. We've seen the joint statement from the Brits, the French and Germans.
For more on this, I'm joined now by Giles Gibson in Washington, D.C. Giles, what has been the reaction there in Washington to the Saudis' version of events?
Well, it's been very difficult over the weekend to pin down exactly what the Trump administration's response has actually been. We've seen Steve Mnuchin, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, previously saying that he wouldn't be attending this economic summit that's going on in Saudi Arabia this week, that's colloquially known as Davos in the desert. But at the same time, he's now announced that he will be going to Riyadh this week to attend another conference that's happening in the Saudi capital. It's a conference on countering terror financing. We've also been hearing from US President Donald Trump. He was asked if he found the Saudi version of events credible. He said he did. And then he's also been saying at the same time that there's been deception and there's been lies from the Saudis. So over the weekend, it's been very, very difficult to pin down where the Trump administration is in terms of the veracity of this latest Saudi version of events.
Giles, how could President Erdogan's intervention change the dynamic here?
Well, we've seen this interview that Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir has given to the US network Fox News. And in that interview, he very much tried to say that their investigation is still ongoing. He said this is the first step of a long journey and that they are determined to uncover every stone. Now, of course, there's been a lot of skepticism about the Saudis' original version of events that they released earlier on during the weekend. And so I think if any more details come out from that investigation, there will also be a lot of skepticism. What President Erdogan's speech that he said he'll give later this week could do is really throw new details into the ring and therefore make it harder for US President Donald Trump to stand so sort of strongly next to Saudi Arabia's version of events.
Well, Giles, let's talk a little bit more about that. What sort of pressure is the American president under right now? Initially, Trump came out in support of Saudi Arabia when they came out with their version of what happened. But now Trump has backtracked and said that the Saudi admission doesn't really make sense.
Well, Donald Trump, the US president, is really getting pressure from both sides of the aisle and both left and right here in Washington. On the one hand, he's getting a lot of pressure from Democrats and also from members of his own party as well, senators and congressmen up on Capitol Hill here in Washington, saying that he needs to do more to push back against the Saudis and project America's vision of human rights around the world. At the same time, he's also getting a lot of pressure from conservatives here in the United States who are very concerned that any action that the Trump administration takes over this entire crisis, over Jamal Khashoggi's murder, could put US arms sales to Saudi Arabia in jeopardy, and that therefore, if those arms sales are in jeopardy, then also those jobs here in the United States that depend on those arms sales could also be put in jeopardy as well.
All right, Giles Gibson live in Washington, D.C. Giles, thank you.